Hello and welcome back to Automotive Tales. On today's episode, we've taken a break from skiing to go to a car museum in a ski resort. Welcome to the village of Kaprun. So we are at the Votter Museum in Kaprun, which is in the Votter's Hotel. So the museum is actually in the basement of the hotel, which is a bit unusual, but there are some really quite amazing things to see in this place. So let's go and have a little look around. So, as you can see from the walk around, there are some utterly incredible vehicles in this little forgotten museum. Some real gems, some real rarities. So what I'm going to do, rather than spoil the whole museum for you, I'm going to pick out a couple that I think are really, really interesting and tell you a little bit about those. And then it's up to you, get on a plane, go to Salzburg, get on a train to Zell and come here to Kaprun to this cool little museum, which, as you can see, I mean, we've almost got the entire place to ourselves because it's so forgotten about, but it's got some great stuff. So let's go have a look at the first car. So one of the vehicles I wanted to show you was this. It's called a Glas 1300 GT. Now, this is something I've never seen before. Launched in 1963 at the Frankfurt Motor Show. What a pretty little coupe this is. It's got a very Italian feel for a German-made car. And one of the things apparently made it very special was the dial binnacle, which is a lovely array of dials in a very Italian style, which I'm going to try and capture because you can walk all the way around these cars in this bit of the museum. So yeah, what a beautiful thing that is. So you can just about make out the dial binnacle down there, which is really quite beautiful. Now, I notice it has a BMW badged steering wheel. Now, I'm not entirely sure why that is. The information with the car doesn't tell me a great deal, but I do wonder whether it has BMW underpinnings. If you know more about this vehicle, please tell me more about it in the comments. I'd love to know, because this is a really pretty car. You can see it looks not too dissimilar to our Fiat 850. It's got the lovely round rear lights, which I think were a standard unit at the time, clearly. Yeah, nice sort of coupe body. What a pretty car. So one of the other cool cars I wanted to show you, it's actually right next to the Glas 1300 GT, is this. Now you'll recognise the front end of that. This is a Trabant. And one of the things there's quite a lot of in this museum is German obscure old cars and some Eastern Bloc vehicles. So you wouldn't be surprised to see a Trabant. But this is a Trabant convertible. How weird is that? So one of the themes about this museum is very small or micro cars. So you'll recognise a Mini there, and you'll recognise what looks a little bit like a Fiat 500 up here, but it's not. It is, but it's not. It's a Steyr Puch. So it was a German-built Fiat 500. How cool is that little thing? And while we're on the subject of microcars, let me show you something else. So not only is there this bewildering array of cool little microcars, from the Go-Go Mobile, a Heinkel, there's also a Messerschmitt. Now, this isn't the only Messerschmitt in the museum, and there's quite a connection to the Messerschmitt, so bear with. So the museum has a whole section just about the Messerschmitt. So the Messerschmitt was designed by Fritz Fend. As you can see, he signed this particular one because he was a friend of the people who put together and curated this museum. So there is a whole section dedicated to it, including a photograph here with the man himself who designed the vehicle. So in 1998, they also had a rally where they brought loads and loads and loads of Messerschmitts all the way here to Kaprun. And so there's a whole article in here about that, including one of the vehicles that ran on the run, which is this one here, which was also signed by Fritz himself. How very cool is that? So this region of Austria has quite a connection to the motor car, not just the Pinzgauer vehicles that are made locally that I mentioned earlier, but also a name you might recognise, Porsche. So Ferdinand Porsche was from this region. I believe some of the families still live around here. So effectively it's the home of Porsche to some extent. So it wouldn't surprise you then that the museum has got plenty of great Porsche exhibits. So let me show you just a few of those. So we have everything from this gorgeous 356 right through to this heavily modified 944 turbo cabriolet, which is a real oddball of a thing. Very, very cool. Not specifically my cup of tea, but very, very cool nevertheless. So another one of my favourites. This is a BMW 700 Coupe, which is, with exception to the 850 that I've got, possibly one of the prettiest coupes from the 60s. It's just adorable. Look at that little face, isn't it absolutely gorgeous? Now, look at this tiny little thing. Still a military vehicle, but kind of the microcar of the military world. This is also a Steyr Puch Haflinger, and the reason I'm doing a MySpace angle for this camera is it really is, like, this is me stood up. It's tiny. So the museum doesn't just have cars as well. Check out these cool old locomotives. There's a nice carriage here. It's a beautiful old steam engine. But the reason I brought you outside is there's something quite cool over here. So the reason this is super cool is this is an Austrian fire engine, but they chose to use a Land Rover. In this particular instance, it's a Land Rover forward control, which is mighty awesome. But we're actually in the Pinzgau region of Austria, where they make military vehicles. Now, maybe this predates the Pinzgau, and my history on it is not so great. But we're also not far from Germany, where they make the mighty Unimog. In fact, there is an example of a Unimog in the museum. So yeah, it's a bit unusual that for Austria, they've chosen to use a forward control Land Rover. Very cool though. See, I wasn't lying, there is a Unimog in the museum as well. So that's all for this episode of Automotive Tales. I hope you enjoyed this walk around the museum. I would highly encourage you, if you're going to be coming through Austria at any point, or if you indeed live in Austria, to come and check out this ace little museum. There's so many cool things that you didn't get a chance to cover in the video, and there's so many forgotten gems hiding here. So make a beeline for Kaprun and come to the museum. And try not to get quite as rosy and sunburnt as me. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. What's cool is when you're bored of the museum, you can just go for a cheeky ski.